welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a question and answer video about breastfeeding. So, hi, my name is Alyssa and I'm a mom of 3 boys. I have a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and he is almost a year in middle of June. And I have breastfed all my boys. I breastfed Jack till he was about 15 months and Levi I think was 14 months. And we'll continue breastfeeding Eric until he is, way after a year. That's usually how it goes, until they can be on like another milk and just be good with eating and getting all their vitamins and stuff. And the reason that the other kind of breastfeeding journeys had ended is because I was pregnant. So then it affected my supply, and it was also just about time. We figured it was time to end that. I do have Levi playing with Play-Doh out there, so you might hear him playing. It's really quite exciting hearing what they're talking about. So I have a few questions that I'm going to answer and just kind of talk about my story a little bit. So, supplies for breastfeeding moms. I have my bedside table. I have reusable nursing pads. I also have like the more like not plasticky ones, but I have those ones when I didn't leak so much. So in the beginning, when you have a newborn baby, my supply was always really high because we chose to breastfeed babies for steady every 2 hours for the first 2 weeks, just to help with good milk supply and just get them well off. Like with Jack, he was a big baby and he just needed more food or whatever. With Levi, we fed him every 2 hours for the first 2 weeks, was because he was a little baby and we just wanted to kind of like bulk him up and that kind of stuff. And with Eric, my third, we did the same thing, both a discussion between my husband and I, and we did it for the first month because he was a big baby and he was stuck, so it caused more like facial bruising, which led to jaundice. So he had really bad jaundice. We actually had to do the jaundice test like 2 or 3 times, which is awful. And so that helped him clear his jaundice really well and just kind of kept pumping him full of food and stuff. So I used those reusable nursing pads once my supply kind of evened out and I wasn't continually leaking all the time. So when you are leaking, I recommend you can get like they're like a plastic like little cup insert that you fit in, and it will actually collect from one side as you're nursing on the other side, just based on like letdown, that pressure. And those can be really well for like building up your milk supply, like the storage you have, right? It just kind of builds that up without even trying, right? And then I also used a haka, so I put a haka on one side while the baby fed on one side, and it could be up to an ounce that you're just like not wasting but like leaking out and stuff, and that worked well for just kind of building up a supply with not even having to pump. So another supply would be a breast pump. I have one electric breast pump that I was given, just a single, and then I also have a manual breast pump that I've had since when we were shopping with Jack. And it worked well because I wasn't, with any of my boys, I wasn't away long enough to have like a big supply made. I was always around, could hop back, or they would just kind of skip a feed or that kind of stuff. So it worked well to have a breast pump even for Jack. When I was breastfeeding Jack, I didn't have too much knowledge about breastfeeding, and so I ended up with plugged ducts very often. It was very sore and gorged all the time. So I pumped a lot more with Jack. And then Levi, when we did like a little small trip, I pumped so that he would have a supply for the full day. But he played shy, so we didn't get our full day away. But it is perfectly fine because I was always around to feed baby and always be there. So it's been good. So in order to have a good milk supply, it is good because the more baby feeds one day, the more milk there will be the next day. So if you're worried about low supply, if you feed baby, wait a while, like an hour, and then pump. So your body regulates how much baby feeds today. That's how much milk they'll produce for tomorrow. So if you have low supply, you need to up the feeds. You need to increase the intake so your supply will regulate to have more milk. And just, it's hard as a mom because you're like, oh, I have no time to feed the baby, and I'm always feeding the baby, I'm always doing this, but your supply will be good. It'll be good. There's also, I've had to take mother's milk tea with Jack after I had a kidney stone and was in the hospital and couldn't pump basically. So I took mother's milk tea after that, and it worked really well. Obviously you can change like certain things in your diet. Like I have oatmeal regularly throughout the week. I drink a lot of water, and that helps. So that'll affect your low supply. So with babies, you can always tell when they're young and if they're getting enough, right? So if they have, I'll insert a picture of if they have enough wet diapers or they have enough poopy diapers and like all that kind of stuff. And you'll kind of figure out by how they are, if they are. So I always chose to give my babies a full meal. So that was both sides. That was choosing to feed them both sides rather than like one side at a time, then another time, so that they could regulate their schedule. And it was easier, like having 3 boys, obviously it had to be somewhat of a routine. So that's what I did, and it really worked for just giving my babies a full feed, that they were never, and they did cluster feed every now and then, they did cluster feed, but I was able to pump the other side and store it. With Levi, when he was starting to sleep through the night a little bit, he would only ever nurse one side, and then it would be like 4 hours later they would nurse the other side. So if you're wondering if your baby is well fed, I would look at their age. So from like newborn to like, I'd say a month and a half, they'll feed every 2 hours, and that's the full meal. So if they're not getting their full meal, then they'll feed more often. So cluster feeding is more often than that. It could be the day, it could be they're sad. And babies don't only nurse when they're hungry, they could be sad, they could be teething. That's my little guy, he's teething. And truck noises. And just wanting to be comforted. They're tired, they need comforted. So it could be that they're not just only hungry, right? So the hardest part for breastfeeding for me was initially when I was feeding Jack. And I kind of had an idea of like what an Untitled and what it looked like basically, but it was hard. So I had, with I said before, I had plugged ducts with Jack. I had mild mastitis. I had all these kind of issues and stuff. So that was the hardest part. With Levi, it was easy. You popped him on, he nursed right off the get-go. Like, it was fantastic. With Eric, it was a little trickier because we thought he had a lip tie, because there's the tissue up in your upper lip, the little flat part that connects to kind of like your gums to your lip. So his didn't connect all the way to the very tip of his lip, which would be the tongue tie. His is just like a thick, I'll also insert a picture. This is what it looks like. So we were worried that there wasn't enough flexibility in his lip, that he was tucking it in, and that was causing me to be sore and to have issues and stuff. So I went and seen a doctor, and I got referred to a lactation consultant, and she actually said that it was just a high palate issue, that he wasn't having the nipple completely in there, that it was just kind of on the very tip. He was sucking on the tip rather than having the whole mouth in there, which is also good. Very good to have a good latch when nursing, because mamas can be very sore without a good latch. And yeah, I understand that breastfeeding is a very, very big commitment, and I think I've kind of taken that for granted because it's never been an expense for us. And I know moms that have had a hard time breastfeeding, and that it's taken like medications and vitamins and stuff for them to keep their supply up. And I I am in awe of you. You are amazing, because breastfeeding your babies is just the most precious thing that you can do as a mom. Just one more thing that you can give your children, right? And like, it worked really well because we got over our quarantine and stuff. So any symptoms I had, like my body was already producing antibodies to give to Eric. So like Eric was mildly congested, like a runny nose and stuff, and he was teething at the same time. So you're not really sure, but you kind of have that peace in your heart where you're like, no, my body will do what it's supposed to. Okay, now I can record part 2. So this is my nursing chair in the baby's room. It is fantastic, and it can rock, it can recline, it can swivel. One of the other supplies that I have is this, a giant nursing pillow. So you just kind of tuck it in and have baby sitting on there. It's really handy because with the boys I suffered like sore back muscles, and so it was nice to just have the baby sitting there and not be like constantly holding them up all the time. And then in my drawer over here I have more nursing pads. I have like a cover. Yeah, baby's up, so I can actually film in here now, so that's handy. Had a nap in there. Yeah, I also have a couple other things like kind of ready on the go, like face cloths I have, just in case there's like leaking and that kind of stuff. And birth is hard work, both on moms and babies. What's baby doing? Yeah. And come here. Baby. What's baby? So this is my third. He is, I think, 11 months today. He's 11 months. Yes, he loves phones, so he will try and grab it. So, let's sit you up nice. He loves nursing. He is up quite often. Even in the night, he was up 1:30 and 5:30 and then at 7. So, he is well fed and squirmy. And you gonna go play? So, if you have any questions, I know this is just kind of like a quick blah 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 talk, but if you have any other questions, let me know anytime. Like I am completely open to talking to you guys about breastfeeding, about babies, about anything that I can, because you gotta feed your baby, and whichever that looks like for you in your time in your life, that's fantastic and it's good. Thank you for watching this video, and we will see you next week. Bye.